Good evening, Chair calls to order public hearing for Bill 25-018, Supplemental Appropriation Harford Center and Citizens Care. Mr. Salas, whenever you're ready, sir.
Robbie Salas, Harford County Treasurer. Good evening, Council President, members of the Council. On behalf of the County Executive, bringing forth a request to make a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $215,000 from the General Fund balance to the capital budget to fund repairs and replacement of elevators at both Citizen Care and the Harford Center. Most of this expense is related to the Citizens Care Center elevator, which is $200,000 of that $215,000, and the total cost of that project is $400,000, with Citizen Care supporting it, paying half of it, paying $200,000, and the county paying for the balance. On the Harford Center side, it's $15,000. And that was more or less for some emergency repairs to their elevator. We will have a future project probably coming up in this upcoming budget year. We'll be using some grant dollars, some community block development grant dollars to pay for the replacement. But this was then just for some of the emergency repairs.
Thank you, Robbie. Appreciate that. And I know that several council members have worked with you to help move this forward. And I guess I'll start probably with Mr. Bennett as a liaison.
Hello, I'm lucky enough to serve on the boards of both of these places, Citizens Care and the Harford Center, and I just, this is very important work, and we can't wait till the next budget cycle, but also just want to thank the administration for their consistent support of taking care of the facilities of Citizens Care and the Harford Center over the past 3 years. It's I've been a bright spot in the past 3 years, and I'm very thankful that this work is getting done.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Giangiordano?
Thanks. I also want to echo Councilman Bennett's remarks regarding Harford Center. I went out and visited them, and they did tell me they had an issue with the elevator, and I called around and spoke to the administration, and thankfully we got it worked out where you guys were able to get whatever part they needed, although it was expensive to get the elevator working. I think that was really important. I think that shows that Harford County really cares, about citizens and the work that they do out there. So it's really appreciative. Thanks.
Yeah, they were both some older elevators. Actually, from what I understand, the one at Citizen Care may be one of the older elevators in operation in the state. And the one at Harford Center was kind of a proprietary system. We had to transfer it to a non-proprietary system.
Well, at least we got it up and running, and I know
Yes.
there's some stuff in the budget for replacement, but at least for this point. So I do appreciate that, and the administration. Thank you.
Ms. Robert?
Yes, I just want to echo my fellow councilmen. That was a lot of discussions going on, and everyone worked together as a team, and that is what's needs to happen in order to get things done and fixed. So thank you.
Anyone else, council? Ms. Enlow?
I just wanted to say thanks, not just as a council member, but as a family member. My sister is a client of Harford Center and has mobility issues and will be using this elevator moving forward. So it's just comforting to know that our county is dedicating those funds to those who need it the most.
Thank you. And I noticed that we have representation from both organizations. Any comments at all?
Just thank you. I just want to thank the council. I want to thank the county executive for their generosity, their compassion, and understanding the importance of having elevators. I can certainly speak for the Harford Center. I'm sure Ed can also echo. We both serve individuals with ambulation issues. I serve people with disabilities, the elderly, et cetera. And it is a critical service. We need to move people between floors. People need independence, and this appropriation will make a tremendous difference to nonprofits where these amounts of money are strains on an already strained budget. So I just want to thank you all. I want to thank Councilman Bennett. Thank you for your support. I want to thank Councilman Giangiordano for coming and visiting and your advocacy. I want to thank Councilman Robert. Thank you for coming out. And Councilwoman Imhoff, I thank you so much for trusting Family Memorial Harford Center. So thank you all.
Sir?
As Sherry said, I'll echo that as well. We appreciate the cooperative spirit with the council, and many of you were at our recent expansion, our renovation back in the fall, and that sort of helped us kick off the conversation. The elevator you're speaking about is from 1967 and has had some repairs, but I will say, other than some people, but not everyone, including myself. But
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, do we have anyone signed up?
There's no one signed up, Mr. President.
Thank you. With that, this will conclude the public hearing for Bill 25018, and look forward to taking it up at our next meeting. Thank you. This will conclude the public hearing, and we're going to have to take a 9-minute recess. Good evening. Chair calls the legislation session day 26001 to order. Would ask you to please join us in standing for the pledge, followed by the opening prayer by Councilman Bennett. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, thank you for bringing us together today on our first council meeting of the new year. I pray that this is a year of rejoice and rejuvenation. I pray that this is a year where we grow and where we strengthen our community. And I pray that you help us to make this a year where in our last year together as a full council, we do everything we can to help our community. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. Agenda item number 4, presentation of proclamations. Harford County Department of Inspections Licenses and Permits, 2025 Permit Technician of the Year, Emily Dickey. Emily, would you join me up front, please? Whenever you're ready.
Whereas Emily Dickey is the recipient of the 2025 Permit Technician of the Year Award by the Maryland Building Officials Association, MBOA. These awards are designated to honor and recognize individuals who provide exceptional service within their jurisdiction, actively promote the code enforcement profession, and offer valuable support to colleagues throughout Maryland and beyond. And whereas the MBOA's primary purpose is to promote professionalism and improve the standards of building code compliance practices in the cities and counties of the state of Maryland, now, therefore, we, the County Council of Harford County, Maryland, on the 6th day of January, 2026, do hereby recognize Emily Dickey, Maryland Building Officials Association 2025 Permit Technician of the Year. Harford County Government, Department of Inspections, Licensing and Permits, and express our appreciation for continued service and dedication to the citizens and businesses of Harford County.
So, Emmy, my colleagues and I are all very proud of you, but we're extremely proud of you, as you know. Really pleased that you're working in permits office with our citizens each and every day, coming in and filing for different permits, in talking with your leadership. They all speak very highly of you, and glad you're there, and say you have a bright future there, which does not surprise me at all. So we want to present you with this proclamation on behalf of my colleagues. Congratulations and thank you. Come in here.
You needed a plaid sport coat.
Emily, you want to say anything?
Just thank you.
Hold on a second.
I just want to say thank you, especially to my coworkers who nominated me for this award. Thank you, Debbie and Heather. And thank you all.
5, consideration of petitions, applications, appointments, and nominations. Executive appointments, Agricultural Land Preservation Advisory Board. May I have a motion to approve the following?
Council President, the move to appoint Mitchell Hopkins and David Doherty to the Agriculture Land Preservation Advisory Board, and the reappointments of Megan McMillan, Jocelyn Trout Smithson, and William Amos.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Been moved and seconded to approve the appointments and reappointments to the Agriculture Land Preservation Advisory Board. Is there any discussion? Mr. Giangiordano.
So I know Mr. Amos is in the audience here tonight, and I know he was a big part of helping us reevaluate land preservation before, so I certainly appreciate that he's still sticking around and still helping. I think it's really important. His knowledge is unbelievable, institutional knowledge that we can't do without. You know, when we had some other council people before who questioned, you know, the process and everything, he really was quite good in explaining things, and we've revamped it, and I think it's a fabulous program. So I'm glad that he's on the board, so I want to thank him. Thank you. And the other people, welcome to Mitchell Hopkins and David Doherty, and I don't know if they're in the audience. If they are, then we'll recognize them all.
They're not. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Ms. Imhoff?
I just also want to give a thanks to the Amos family as well. I spoke with Mr. Amos at an event not too long ago, and I shared with him that when my dad was a new farmer taking over my generational farm, it was his uncle that actually saw the potential in my dad as a young guy from Baltimore City who had no clue what he was doing. And Mr. Amos's uncle actually gifted my family our first Angus bull. And we kept that bull long after his uncle and his aunt had actually passed away. But it is their family lineage that has helped my family lineage, so I want to thank them. That's
awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? I too am going to echo Mr. Giangiordano's comments. Mr. Amos has been an absolute treasure, if you will, as far as helping us move forward in our ag preservation efforts. And I think, again, as I've said many times, these open green spaces are what makes Harford County an absolute amazing place to live, learn, and raise a family. So thank you for all of your efforts. With no other comments, Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mrs. Imhoff? Aye. Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bolsados?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the appointments are hereby approved. 6, special presentations, Harford Community Action Agency, freezing weather plan update. Could you please come forward, Ms. Craig, Mr. Hyde, Mr. Wainwright? Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for the invite.
We go ahead and get started?
Yes, ma'am, whenever
Okay.
you're ready.
Sure. Good evening, County Council President Vincenti, members of the council, dedicated staff, and the resilient residents of Harford County. For the record, my name is Pamela Craig. Most of you know me as PJ, but I want to thank you for the invitation to speak this evening alongside my esteemed colleagues, Brian Wainwright and Adam Hyatt. It is a true honor to be in the company of those who care deeply for every resident of this county. Looking out of this room, I see common sense, common goals, and true cheerleaders for humankind. I'll also take my glasses off because I'm at that stage. So bear with me. I also see those who may be apprehensive about what might be said tonight. To those individuals, I offer this. Tonight is not about optics, it's about the truth. My perspective on county operations is not academic. It comes from a lifetime in the front row, informed by years of observation, including my father's tenure as county executive. I know how this house is built, and I know when the foundation needs attention. The strategy for this evening is simple: correction through clarity. We are here to provide precise, high-level, and eye-level operational facts. We recognize there have been significant gaps in the information shared during previous testimonies. However, the reality on the ground is undeniable, and it is time we bridge those gaps with data. I have a few simple requests for everyone in this room, whether you are summoned here or volunteered your time. Listen, learn, approach this presentation with an open mind. Respect the trenches. Leave here with a baseline of respect for the professionals in our agency who are in the trenches every day and every night. This gentleman here to my left. Restore decorum. We, HCAA, are a vital community leader. It is logically inconsistent to expect us to meet high service demands while our operational capacity is dismantled and our reputation is undermined. We seek tonight to align the county's support with the high expectations placed upon us. Let there be no confusion. HCAA is this county's community action agency, CAA. It does not belong to one single faction, one single person, one single organization, or this government. It belongs to all of us. Our mission is to stand as first responders for individuals and families caught in the crosshairs of economic crisis. When a family is forced to choose between a meal and a roof, or between heating their home and buying medicine, HCAA is the net that catches them. We tackle food insecurity, energy burdens, and housing instability head on. These aren't just issues, they are emergencies that affect the health and safety of our neighbors. We operate through the law of Congress, and we are fueled by a complex web of federal and state grants. We are held to rigorous standards of accountability that ensure every dollar is maximized. Through the Harford County Grant and Aid and the incredible generosity of private donors, we turn local investment into immediate relief. This funding is the lifeblood that allows us to pivot quickly when a local crisis arises. We do not just provide services, we provide stability. We do not just hand out aid, we restore dignity. And Harford Community Action Agency is the cornerstone of Harford County's infrastructure, and we must treat it as the essential asset that it is. So thank you for having us tonight, and I appreciate everyone allowing us this time to talk, and talk closely to this microphone so it pops. I'll refer back to my glasses now. I think everyone here is pretty familiar with Harford Community Action Agency, but we're designated as the official community action agency for Harford County, as I previously aforementioned, since 1989. We've been doing this great work. We are one of 1,000 community action agencies across the United States. We are part of the National Community Action Foundation, and we were implemented as a product of President Johnson's Great Society and War on Poverty. We've managed ERAP funds for this state and for this county during, everyone remembers the COVID-19 crisis, so we did so very well. And this past year, we were proud to open the Harford County Food Bank in the spring to provide additional food advocacy, utility assistance, and community mediation, along with homeless prevention services, supporting over 15,200 neighbors this past year. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Brian Wainwright, who was our Senior Director of Supportive Services. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. At this point in time, I'd like to open up for any questions that you may have in regards to the data that we've submitted to you.
First of all, Brian, pull that mic just a little closer to you, please.
How is that?
That's perfect.
Thank you.
And then second of all, I would just say that, when we were at our prior meeting, we had asked some questions, number of beds, facilities, things of that nature. And there seemed to be some discrepancies or some lack of information.
Understood.
And in every case, Harford Community Action Agency was referred to. So that's why you're here tonight.
Okay.
We wanted to hear from you. We wanted to fill any of the gaps that any council members may have. And I'd be glad to start at that end of the dais. Ms. Robert, if you would like to start.
Well, yes, some of the questions that came up, feedback, was the amount of beds for actual families. Right now, even in my community alone, in the past 6 months, 40 families have been displaced and are considered homeless. But we don't have enough beds, even though I'm advised that there are more beds than not. Can you kind of elaborate on what we have, what we don't have and what the needs really truly are, based on even just the numbers I gave you with the 40 families.
Understood, and that's a great question, and I do share the same sentiment of having a destination and a referral source for those families. Unfortunately, for the Supportive Services Program department that I oversee, we have referral partners as SARC, and they are obviously specifically open for referrals from families who are unfortunately experiencing domestic violence from intimate partners. Of course, there are a variety of households that self-report to be experiencing a domestic violence, but for that specific provider, it has to be with an intimate provider. So we filter that out, and then we distinguish whether or not we're going to provide that referral to that particular provider. And then if that particular household stays with us, then we manage it. We do triage, we do an intake, and then we do a full assessment on what we can do for that particular family. In terms of a direct referral source, Anna's House has 4 emergency shelter beds and an additional 4 transitional that is dedicated to SARC. So those additional DV transitional beds are not even accessible to our department because they're directly referred, as I mentioned, from SARC. The additional referral source is Harford Family House, and a lot of folks are familiar with that provider because they actually hold the higher bed capacity in terms of an emergency referral perspective. But unfortunately, the main referrals to Harford Family House in the last 2.5 years have been primarily dedicated to their permanent supportive housing program that they recently took over from Prologue Incorporated, and then formerly known as the Welcome One Emergency Shelter, now known as the Harford Family House Emergency Shelter Facility in Belcamp. That only offers 34 beds for single adults. And I want to reiterate that, single adults, not families with children. Subsequently, PSH is specifically for families who are unfortunately experiencing chronic homelessness, and the definition of chronic homelessness is 4 episodes of being in an unsheltered situation in the last 3 years, or 12 months of straight dedicated of unsheltered. That's just 2 definitions of chronic homelessness. And then, of course, with a documented disability. That affords eligibility for those particular households. Unfortunately, some of those referrals that have been made to that particular provider many years ago, they took over a long list of inventory of PSH households from the previous providers. But unfortunately, in the last couple of years, we've only had the opportunity to provide a couple of referrals in that specific program. In conclusion, they've shuffled their programming, transitioned from emergency shelter to transitional housing, which was a phenomenal opportunity for us in late 2023. Unfortunately, after providing roughly 5 or 6 transitional housing referrals, we have not provided an additional referral since that time. And I've noted, and I've mentioned this on many reports, we haven't sent a referral for a family in need to Harford Family House since October 2024. That is a problem because obviously the demand is growing. Our by name list, and for those who are not familiar with the by name list, any person or any family that comes through our doors and they report to be either category 1, which is the HUD-based definition of literally homeless, either residing in a tent encampment, their personal vehicle, or emergency shelter, or category 4, experiencing that domestic violence situation that I previously shared with you. And we have more than enough of those families that meet that designation. Unfortunately, we have to say no more often than we say yes. And that provides a great deal of secondary trauma onto us, myself and my staff, because we would love to provide a referral to a family in need, but we just haven't been in a position to do so.
And that's teetering off what you said, because what I'm finding is a lot of people are either couch surfing or living in the cars, and still we're in this cold weather. Still, you're in your car, unless you're sitting there running it the whole night. That's the only way you're going to stay warm. I know in speaking with local churches, you know, they can take in adults, but they can't take in families because we're still at that same adult, you know, provision. And so I definitely see there's a big gap in service for families. And I know you guys are trying everything you can, but.
So, in summarization, that's who our referral partners are. And obviously, with a by name list that has well over 200 households, when you do the math, there's a lot of households that are going to be left unsheltered.
So when you had the hotel vouchers, I'm assuming that at that point in time, you had the capability of being able to put families actually into, heated apartments or heated, hotel
vouchers
rooms.
at that point in time,
Yes.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And we would work actively down that by name list of every household that meet that criteria. And we would go down, when the freeze and weather plan was activated, we would implement and provide referrals to those households, during the duration of the activation of that freeze and weather plan. But that is our only additional referral opportunity, because when the freeze and weather plan is not activated, we're back to the same resources. And once again, with a growing demand, and we have no additions to bed capacity, we're dealing with a lot of frustrated people. And I understand why.
Ms. Imhoff?
Good evening, everybody. So I kind of come to this from a unusual perspective in that I have been in countless of your by name list meetings.
Miss you.
So I was a little taken back by the information that was shared a few weeks back, because I've seen the lists. And Anna's House, we'll start there. I started volunteering at Anna's House when I was a teenager. It's kind of how I became a social worker and how I ended up here. I know Anna's House very well. So of the 4 beds, there's 4 rooms, 4 for emergency shelter and 4 for SARC. Those 4 bedrooms can only house up to 4 people, and each bedroom is identified by a different family unit. So you won't have kids sharing rooms with complete strangers. So at the most, you are looking at 8 total households, 4 of which are, as you shared, are designated for domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. So without that, you're looking at 4 rooms for homeless families in Harford County. It's been that way for quite some time. As you all know, I work in schools and in the community, and I can count well more than 4 families that I know of right now who are experiencing homelessness. Even in working with the schools and working with the PPWs, they can sometimes provide a week-long hotel voucher, and then you're on your own. Or they get referred to you guys. And unfortunately, as I've stated, I was quite taken back by hearing that some people believe we are meeting the needs. I've seen the lists. I've seen how hard the decision is in a room full of 30 to 40 advocates trying to figure out who is the most in need of whatever scrap together placement we can find. I've been in the meetings where we had to skip over a family because they had too many kids. I've been in the meetings where we've had to decide if someone really wasn't in a mental health state to be able to be safely housed. And so of the 4 family rooms in Harford County, I just want to confirm that you all feel the same way, that we are not adequately able to meet the needs of the citizens of Harford County right now.
I think all 3 of us sitting here, and maybe everyone in this room, if you the math doesn't math. So that's why we're here tonight with data. It's not, with optics and information that's not tracked with data. So I think we would all agree
Absolutely.
that the answer to that is absolutely yes.
A resounding yes. And to kind of, hate to be the bearer of bad news, however, one of the pivotal resources that you just touched upon, the Harford County Public Schools had that budget pulled. So we don't even have that opportunity to place families temporarily in a 1-week hotel situation. It was a phenomenal program. We did very well. We collaborated phenomenally well with Pamela Smith, who is the McKinney-Vito liaison with Harford County Public Schools. And we just really hoped that was going to be an opportunity that we can kind of take off and maybe even expand and show data to show, hey, there's a need for more funding. But unfortunately, that funding was recently cut, and we don't have access to that.
That buffer week was extremely helpful in being able to connect families with their familial supports, neighbors, anyone who's willing to take them in. It provided a buffer zone because Anna's house, while it's considered an emergency shelter, a family experiencing homelessness tonight can't just show up there.
No, they cannot.
So there is nowhere in Harford County for families experiencing homelessness tonight.
I've unfortunately had that conversation with at least 4 or 5 families today,
Yeah.
and that's just today. And having to answer the question from vulnerable head of households who are trying to do their best to care for their children, at times not necessarily in a position to be fully transparent about their circumstances because out of fear of what may happen, CPS may get called, or, just another set of eyes coming into the household that would add additional stress and anxiety. So imagine trying to complete intakes with these families, knowing very well I don't have a place to refer them to. So then I have to find the means to come up with a trauma-informed care response that can lighten the load and the mere awareness of, oh, so there's no place for me to go. Everyone in the county, everyone has referred me to you. I've done the right thing. I've completed an application, and then you're telling me there's just no destination and there's no landing spot. There's no temporary situation for me and my family to kind of get me to the next round of my paycheck, or I have a job, but my job doesn't start for another 2 weeks. Can you put me in a motel temporarily? And unfortunately, we operate 100% on donations and grants. And right now, we don't have any grants that are dedicated for motel vouchers. And that's just an opportunity or direct service we just cannot provide.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Imhoff. Mr. Bennett?
Hello. I wrote down the quote of high level and eye level because I thought that was, so if you could just talk me through in plain language for anyone who's listening or watching, what changed in the freezing weather plan a year ago to now and what that looks like in practice. Now we've had a few moments of the freezing weather plan being activated, on what that would have looked like a year ago in those instances and what it looks like today if the freezing weather plan's activated.
Well, I can speak to that. Sorry, I'm on this mic. Sorry about that. Nothing has changed in terms of the operation, the workflow, the key components, the key players, most of which some of are in the room tonight. The way that the freezing weather plan is activated, it's stimulated and prompted by the Department of Housing and Community Services. That information and email is then sent to us, and then there is a responsibility that we activate to send it out to our local homeless coalition, our providers, to kind of put the bat signal in the air to say, hey, there is an activation, and then that activation and that email update will then be provided to outreach providers, and I'm included in that. I'm just not an acting director. I also go walking in the woods and go looking for people and provide case management. And that activation is supposed to stimulate to try to get as many people that we are aware of that are in their cars or in a tent encampment to get them into this intervention for 5 days, 6 days, however long the activation is in place for. We provide those opportunities for them. Last year is moving them into motels. This year, unfortunately, that is probably the most blaring change, is that there are no motel vouchers for people who are reported to be in that situation when the freezing weather plan is activated. So the pivot this year was a church in Aberdeen that was supposed to provide kind of like a one-stop shop mass sheltering for anyone who needs it and anyone who reports to be unsheltered. I think that the collective panel knows the outcome of that, and unfortunately that did not take off, and we had to make a hard pivot. And when I say we, I do mean the local homeless coalition, because it very much is a collaborative effort. Everyone that was involved tried to identify potential outcomes and alternatives, but I think at the end of the day, the Department of Housing and Community Services came up with the senior center in Edgewood as a location for the centralized location for everyone that's going to be funneled into that, excuse me, mass sheltering situation when the freezing weather plan is activated. Unfortunately, we went from Plan A that had perceived to be up to 60 people that could be assisted, and that was cut in half because the Edgewood Senior Center only provides 30 spaces. And so that's probably the most blaring difference. The workflow, the operations, the key members in organizations and affiliates all are the same. The only difference is that instead of people who have been identified to be eligible for the service, they're going to go directly into that senior center versus a motel. But from what I understand, that opportunity is only for single adults. Once again, a disparity for families with children in Harford County who are in a vulnerable situation.
And then one of my questions, the last time we had an opportunity to talk about this, is what happens when the 31st person reaches out? So what is the plan of action when that event happens during an emergency, like a freezing weather incident?
To be transparent, I've been in many rooms, many meetings since that time, since we've had to make this pivot of 30, and I've heard many times over, if the 31st household comes into shelter, they will be housed. I personally cannot speak to what that plan looks like, sounds like, and even who's responsible for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Riley.
Just a couple questions. When you do your going out into the highways and byways and finding these folks for the freezing weather plan, are they disconnected to Harford County at all? I mean, do you research whether they have family members here? Do they have background? Have they got roots here? Are these just people fallen from other places? Or my question to you, are you reaching out to their families? They got to have some kind of roots here in Harford County where they might be able to, say, stay with grandmom or granddad or...
Absolutely, and that's part of our job and our role during intake when we're trying to identify a potential landing spot. Once again, because if we shared with everyone here tonight, the homelessness system here in Harford County is, the resources are very limited as it pertains to the demand that we're seeing, right? So if we're constantly faced with a lack of an ability to refer a family or a single adult, we're constantly looking for an element of diversion to try to not allow them come into our homelessness system and to identify a mother, a brother, an uncle, anyone that's willing to provide them a stable situation so they're not technically entering our homelessness system. We don't just open up the curtain and allow everyone in. There is a vigorous diversion questioning. We drill deep down to find out, is there a stable place that we can provide for you? And let's talk about reunification. So if a person is struggling with drugs and alcohol, if a person is struggling with behavioral health, or both, sometimes they've burnt bridges with those natural supports. And mom may be 2 zip codes over, but mom's not going to allow her son to come in because of the burnt bridges of the aforementioned challenges that person may be dealing with, or that used to deal with, or is probably still dealing with. So it's not as easy as some may think to say, oh, well, do they have family in the county? They'll take them in. Absolutely not. If it was that easy, trust me, the mere amount of households on our by name list wouldn't be as much as it would be.
No, I didn't.
And then back to
I
your-
didn't make no aversion that, in fact, I just wanted to make sure you were doing that. You were trying to reach out to that.
Yes, sir. And then the second half of your question is, do they have a former affiliation from a different county? We sit along an I-95 corridor that at any given moment, I've provided services to a family from South Carolina who the car broke down, and they happened to pull off in a rest stop here in Harford County. I've probably provided services to households all the way up and down the eastern seaboard. I've had the opportunity to provide bus passes, train tickets to get folks back home when we do a deeper dive to try to find out, oh, you do have family members, they're just not around. What is it going to take to get you back home? What is it going to take to get you back stable again? So we go through these steps for each and every household, each and every applicant that comes through our doors. But unfortunately, we rely upon self-reporting And we don't have another source to compare the information that we're receiving from the applicant. Sometimes we have an affiliation if there is a Harford County Public Schools, affiliation, or if there's another outreach provider that we're familiar with. And then during the case conference and in the by name list, as Councilwoman Ms. Imhoff alluded to, excuse me.
It's okay.
Then we do as best as we can to then reunite them to something stable. But unfortunately, it's just not always to be the outcome. But, so my point of bringing up the reason why we're sitting on the I-95 corridor, we have 2 major train stations in our county as well. So there's always going to be a transient nature to our county, whether it's for good or whether it's for bad. That's just the nature of the beast of Harford County, and that's just something that I've always dealt with for the last 8.5 years of being, the director of our department. That's just something that we do. We serve everyone that comes through our doors. If, and I say if, we have an opportunity to place them, anytime there is a person that's experiencing homelessness for the very first time, that's actually a benchmark that we try to eliminate and try to prioritize and get them out of that situation as soon as possible. So we provide a referral if eligible, or we provide a referral if there is a vacancy. And then, through collaboration of case management, sharing of resources or permanent housing opportunities, we try to put those folks into permanent housing destinations after a brief stint in an emergency shelter or a long stint in transitional housing.
And so, what is your solution to what you foresee as a problem?
In terms of homelessness in Harford County?
Yes.
Well, number one, we need to advance the bed capacity to meet the demand that we're seeing. Currently,
And how is that done?
how is that done? Well, through funding, through awareness, through advocacy. Through my 8.5 years, it's quite odd because I've found myself combating the fact that there's a homelessness problem in Harford County. Based upon who I'm speaking with, some will say, absolutely, Brian, I'm right there with you. I'm along fighting that same fight with you. But then there's sometimes I have that conversation with people in a room and they're like, what are you talking about? There's more than, there's not a homelessness problem in Harford County. And then I say, come and have a seat with me.
Right, well, you're telling me the problem, I'm asking for solutions.
Well, the solution is to increase the bed capacity. We're a nonprofit provider, and we cannot come up with putting brick on top of brick. We can advocate, we can identify problems, we can, be part of the solution in terms of brainstorming. But however, the referral source has to increase for single adults, for
And
families
so
with
is
children.
funding your responsibility or somebody else's?
It's somebody else's responsibility.
And then the other thing we heard is that we did have a hotel voucher, and that the people requested that they don't give out hotel vouchers because they were abusing them. Did I hear that right?
That was what was
Meaning
relayed.
from the previous presentation?
Yes, for the emergency, for the freezing weather plan.
Well, I'm familiar. Last year, when the motel vouchers were available, part of our job is to do the deep drill downs to households who.
We understand that, but are you the folks that decided you didn't want vouchers anymore?
Oh, no, our agency did not.
Do you know of any agency that did, or was the last presentation just making it up?
So I'd like to clarify something on that,
Right, yeah.
if I may. When the county representatives came to our agency in the spring to review our grant and aid application, they came in with a proposal for a better plan than hotels. So of course, we were ecstatic to hear what this plan would be, because as you mentioned, the hotel placements through freezing weather plan was $55,000 last year. So that budget modification was removed from our budget, and we thought we were going to have a much better plan. So when you hear that news, yay, that's great. We are so excited that we're not going to be working the hotel business anymore. What's the plan? I think that's where the excitement came from, but I'm not sure that we are either ecstatic or excited. I think we're just sort of neutral to the plan at this point. Excited that there are no hotels, I wouldn't say if it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's different, but I don't think we're better off for it or not better off. I think the families, which
So
Councilman
you're not
Bender-
advocating for the voucher plan at all?
As an agency, we would love to see the motel voucher being available for certain situations, like as we talked about.
For families.
Families with children. There literally is no infrastructure for that
Okay. Thanks.
population of Harford County residents.
Mrs. Sauls.
Thank you. Can you speak to the senior center usage and who works it? How is there security? Who manages it overnight and in the morning, and how that works?
I can say that staffing from the Department of Housing and Community Services staff that particular outfit. I don't know specifically the staff that's overseeing, the whole senior center, but we've been told that it's fully staffed by the Department of Housing and Community Services.
Okay. And then have you heard any updates on the church that was supposed to be a shelter?
The last update that I have, unfortunately, is just not an outcome that we can use. So we had to make that hard pivot to the senior center in Edgewood. That was the information that I personally received.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett.
I just wanted to ask one more question. I thank you for your time. About our previous presentation to now, one of the things that was discussed at our last conversation was that with the hotel vouchers, there was this abuse of people like hopping county lines because they knew that they could get themselves into a heated hotel room if they got themselves into Harford County versus being in Cecil County or Baltimore County or Southern PA, and that was a rampant issue in years past in freezing weather incidents. I know that you do a lot of the work with intake in those situations. In your experience, was the demographic of people reaching out, were they people from other counties who were coming here because we had vouchers, or was it by and large people you were already interacting with in other circumstances?
By and large, the majority was folks that we were already experiencing homelessness and familiarity from our department. However, there were, I would say, easily a handful of households that we did a deep dive, and we've identified that these households are not appropriate for hotel placement. We've communicated to the Department of Housing and Community Services of those specific households. Like I said, it wasn't really a long list of households, but I would say at least 4 to 5 households that we said, hey, if you get an update or a call from these particular households, don't house them. But then on Monday morning when we would come back, those particular households were housed. So when you have staffing that are doing the intakes and the triage after hours, and they don't normally do this, there's going to be opportunities for people to filter through. But our agency and staff did the best that we could to identify, hey, just want to make you aware, household X, Y, and Z may call you, but they were in a hotel last night. They're not sleeping in their car. They're not already outside in an unsheltered situation to where they would then be eligible and prioritized for this intervention. But unfortunately, that information did not stick, and money was spent.
I would also like to add to that point that the hotel placements that were made prior to 5 p.m. from Harford Community Action Agency, those placements, those are Harford County residents. Anything that happens after 5 p.m., those placements were not handled by our agency. Furthermore, there is no data that was tracked based on those post 5 p.m. placements to verify if those individuals were in fact crossing county lines and hopping up and down 95 to get hotels, and then in fact damaging hotels and abusing the situation. I think the issue is not as much not having hotels or having hotels. I think the biggest issue for the motel voucher depletion this year is to be able to serve families with children, not as much individuals. I think the freezing weather plan that we've come up with in conjunction with Harford County government is a workable plan for single adults, female and male, for families. That's where the issue lies, is with with placement for families.
Thank you.
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Sotos?
Thank you. So it's my understanding that the county spent somewhat over $55,000 on this church, and you guys don't have any access to it for anything. Okay.
Unfortunately, no.
And last year, hotel vouchers, how much did you say was spent?
The
Just
number,
under
yeah,
$56,000.
$55,956.57. Thank you, Gail.
So if the county had given that money to you rather than spend it on a church, we probably wouldn't be having this issue.
I'd say it's safe to say that we could reappropriate those dollars to house families with children that Mr. Wainwright was speaking of earlier.
Right. Okay, all right, thank
Still a
you.
growing demand in that area, unfortunately.
Thanks.
Ms. Robert?
This is my last question. And it was just kind of based on all the conversations. So last year, PJ, how many families actually accessed the hotels with the vouchers? And for how long of a period of time, for maybe a average, did they spend in the actual hotel during the freezing weather?
So last year, we had 124 hotel motel placements, and that was through freezing weather plan, through Harford County Public Schools, and then through families who were transitioning. If you recall, last year, we had a very, very cold winter, so a lot of the placements were longer than the average stay, which would be 1 or 2 days. We had families staying in hotels for upward to a week or longer. So those households could be single individuals, they could be families. I'm not sure, Brian, if you know the breakdown of the 124 households.
I didn't prepare that specific data
households,
tonight, but
whether
we
it's
can provide
individual
that.
Okay, so sometimes it was a single
Yes.
person and, okay.
And
Sometimes
if
it's
it's a
single.
single, then we, double up to a double occupancy room to stretch and try to make sure that we're trying to serve as many people as we possibly can. We're not gonna put one person in a room with 2 beds.
Understood.
Sure, and then the first line of defense is always to refer those individuals to whichever openings Harford Family House, Welcome One Shelter would have. That's the first step, is to make sure that all of those beds are full. There are some issues where individuals are not willing to go to a congregate shelter for a number of reasons, and those reasons are endless. That would be another conversation, but just because there's a bed available, we can't mandate that someone would be able, it's not a good fit to go there. So that's the first line of defense. The second line would be the emergency rotating shelter, which is operating right now, which is currently not at capacity. Again, same situation with the emergency rotating shelter. So then now step 3 would be the congregate warming shelter, which is held in Edgewood. Now, if you were to switch out the congregate shelter with hotels, you might have some more interest, but as we said, we're doing the best possible screening we can to get individuals placed into 1, 2, 3. It's like, let's make a deal, door 1, 2, or 3. Obviously, with door number 3 being a motel, that might be the most, the best of interest to anyone who's experiencing homelessness, but not always the case. I wouldn't say that they're always jumping to that because they might need more case management, access to meals, access to case management, job searches, transportation, that sort of thing. So every situation is unique. It's no situation is the same. It's unique. So I think to make broad statements about a population or a group of individuals to say this is what all of them are doing or this is what most of them are doing, I think that's an unfair statement to make in general.
Yeah, because there's personal preferences, there's previous traumas that people are dealing with, and back to that C word that was mentioned, the congregate shelter. Not everyone is willing to go into a congregate shelter environment. Regardless if a person is struggling with drugs and alcohol or behavioral health diagnosis or both. They just may not, it could be a hardworking individual trying to get sleep to go to work in the next morning, but they can't get any sleep because they're over top of someone or underneath someone struggling with a variety of different issues. It's a rough situation.
Mr. Riley?
Yeah, just the last couple of questions. So what went on with the church? I'm confused as to why that didn't happen. I got the impression last time we heard about this that it was something to do with the town of Aberdeen, or did I hear that wrong, Adam, since you're on the You're right there front and center.
Well, I will speak to it briefly. Most of those conversations were between the Mayor McGrady, the county government, and the congregation at Church of God at 511 Edmond Street. The review was that the use of the space did not align with the city's zoning code, and the use of the space as a congregate shelter or shelter use was not in line with what was in Aberdeen zoning code.
And so is that going to get resolved? Is the $55,000 going back to the county? What, do you have any idea where that's happening?
Well, I can't answer anything about the $55,000, but based off of the direction that the city has taken, I don't see any change in the city's position on the use at 511 Edmond Street.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I thought Mr. Riley was going to touch on, and he did briefly, but based on our lunch yesterday at Rotary, where you were the guest speaker, there was a lot of conversation about future growth, if any, or expansion of facilities. We talked about Welcome One. Where are we with that?
The last I've heard with Welcome One, there is a plan in place. There's a plan that's been drawn, and that's all that I have heard as far as that process goes. And I believe the expansion would allow for room for 4 families. I'm not sure of the size of the families exactly, but 4 families.
Is that the second floor, or is that expansion to the side?
I
What
don't
is
believe
that?
the second floor is allowable for expansion based on the
Okay.
height of the roof, but
Okay.
that would be a great question for Robin, who's here tonight, if she'd like to answer that. But, you know, there is a plan. There's a plan that's been drawn. I haven't heard anything as far as permitting or moving forward with that process.
So I wanted to recognize a lot of your partners and your board members that are here tonight. Thank you for coming. Robin, it's up to you. If you want to speak, you're more than welcome to come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. What I have been told is that the shelter expansion is in what they call plan review, and that it is supposed to go out to bid in February. That's the latest news that I have. It is the library, the Harford County Public Library administrative space is to the right of where our shelter is. And Mary Hassler is giving up some of that space so that we can expand the shelter. Right now, we have funding through the county to bring in non-congregate family space, which will accommodate about 4 families. And then there's some additional funding for congregate where we can expand women. We can have 8 more women there. So we're trying to figure out how to utilize that.
This
space
expansion
best.
process or project has been going on
For
for quite
years.
some.
There's been lots of discussion
Yeah.
for years about it. We have worked with Frederick Ward. The drawings are all done, but, you know, now we're kind of waiting at this point.
So, I mean, it's kind of a hard question to answer, I guess, but I gotta ask it. What is the remedy? What in your professional eyes and mind, what is the answer to this? What do we need to do?
Well, I can answer that. From my perspective, it's a pretty simple fix. The easiest way to curb homelessness is to have homes for
Provide
those
housing.
who are homeless to be in, because the first step in self-sufficiency would be to have a roof over your head, so that's the biggest stressor in your life, and then you can start to work towards the other things such as, you know, jobs and transportation, but you're sort of taking off the biggest stressor, which is housing. So space, which is what Brian spoke about, capacity, increasing capacity. Harford Community Action Agency does not own property. We do not rent property. We are not landlords. We are in the business of referring to agencies that do own property, do rent property, do have landlords. So it's a whole big effort. And I'm not sure, Brian.
No, that's true. Harford Family House owns 41 properties. We have an apartment building in Aberdeen. And as PJ was mentioning, most people that live there are in transitional housing. They are not emergency shelter residents, although I am looking to try to convert more units to emergency shelter because of this huge need. So we have 41 units there, we have 30 units there plus units all throughout Aberdeen that we own or rent. We have 15 in permanent supportive housing, some in Edgewood, one in Darlington. Brian spoke about that program as well. But the need really is in the emergency shelter area for families. So the need is for more housing, maybe a vacant building that we could convert into a family shelter or something.
Does the numbers fluctuate from year to year? I mean, it doesn't continue to grow, or does it?
It depends on, it's pretty much, it's not the same families, but it's the same number. And so in our PIT count last year, which we referred to the point-in-time count, which will be held the last week of January, last year we had over 200 people were identified as experiencing homelessness, and that does count what Robin was speaking to, 151 individuals who were sheltered. So it's a growing problem everywhere. If you look at any zip code in the United States, and I know that you receive the reports, we send quarterly data to each of you, to all of our state delegates, state senators, and the number one growing program that we have at Harford Community Action Agency is homelessness. And it's growing in each zip code. It's creeping up from Edgewood and Aberdeen into the 2101415, 21009. So it's not just in certain zip codes. That just happens to be where the shelter is. But it's definitely growing, I'd say, nationwide.
Yeah, and one of the things that, the PIT count, the over 200, that's really based on HUD definition for homelessness. When we talk about people like Pam Smith who work in the school systems, we're talking about those children, school-age children. There's over 500 of them currently that don't have a permanent address. So they're couch surfing, or they're in and out of motels for little distances. And, Allison mentioned that she works in her, private life with schools. I think it was Johnstown you had mentioned that.
So I've worked across the county, actually across northern Maryland, and we have almost 300,000 citizens in Harford County, and there's 4 rooms for homeless families. In one school alone that I work in Riverside, there's 10 students out of 40 who haven't had a permanent residence in years. And because of the limited resources we have here, but because of the job opportunity that their families do have, there's nowhere else for them to go. So they will spend their childhood bouncing from air mattress to sofa to car to shelter, because a lot of times it is generational. So interventions, but at the end of the day, I fully understand the need of, it's cold right now. And a lot of these families would much rather stay in far more dangerous situations because they've been told once that there was no place for them.
Okay, council, anybody else with anything? I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come visit with us this evening and give us some input. Robin, I want to thank you again for your organization, especially because the one thing that we noticed right away is when you take a family in, you teach them to sustain themselves into the future. You help them get a job. You help them find a way to get themselves on their feet, manage a checkbook. So when they leave, they're self-sustaining. So I really appreciate that. Okay? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7, approval of minutes, legislative day 25-031, December 9th, 2025. Special legislative session day 25-032, December 15th, 2025. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There being no corrections, the minutes stand approved. Mr. Giangiordano, please read Resolution 00126 into the record for introduction.
Resolution 001-26, capital program changes, Harford Center and Citizens Care, introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the county executive. A resolution to approve certain changes to the county's capital program as required by Bill 09-10.
Thank you. Mr. Sandless? You were right, it was going to be longer than I thought. But thank you for taking the time to stay.
Gives my wife a break from me this evening.
There you go.
So this resolution goes along with the public hearing we had earlier in the ordinance where we were increasing the size of the budget in order to fund those appropriations for the elevator projects. What this one here does is it's just more or less a companion piece that changes the capital improvement plan. So it corresponds with exactly what we talked about earlier.
Awesome, thank you. Council, anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Sandless. Okay, agenda number 9, introduction of bills, we have none. 10, introduction and consideration of amendments, we have none. 11, call for final reading of bills, we have none. 12, enrollment of bills, none. 13, unfinished business, none. 14, new business, none. 15, comments and input from attending citizens. Ms. Dixon, do we have anyone signed up?
We do, Mr. President. We have 3 this evening. Adam Schellenbarger, followed by Angie Myers.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Adam Schellenbarger, 409 Garnett Road, Joppa, Maryland, 21085.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. My name's Adam Schellenbarger. I'm the preacher of Joppatown Christian Church, which is currently hosting the emergency rotating shelter. So would love to talk with any of you after the meeting. I've been involved with the Harford County Hope for the Homeless Alliance for a long time. In fact, I was at the very first meeting over 10 years ago. Since that time, my church has hosted the emergency rotating shelter every non-COVID affected year, and we have welcomed hundreds of guests through our doors, helping many of them on the journey from housing insecurity to a better and more permanent solution. Let me begin with what is going well. I believe the current administration has shown a great deal of ingenuity and creativity in addressing problems that are not easy to solve, and in doing so has been willing to try approaches that we've not tried before. I commend the effort within the freezing weather plan to partner with a church that had an available building with the goal of reducing reliance on costly motel rooms. That kind of outside-the-box thinking is invaluable when tackling challenges of this magnitude. While that particular effort did not work the way that any of us hoped, I still see it as a meaningful step in the right direction as a sign of thoughtful leadership. One area where I believe the executive branch has lost some ground is in the oversight and coordination of services around and across Harford County. At the last council meeting, a comment was made that numerous churches were called to assist, but none, or maybe one, picked up the phone. That surprised me, as I've been trying to offer our services for quite some time to no success. Something seems to have broken down. Years ago, when Renee Duzan served as the lead for the Continuum of Care, there was a strong sense of organization and momentum. Reasonable people can disagree whether the Continuum of Care should be administered directly by the county or by the Community Action Agency, but having someone within the county government actively organizing efforts and marshaling county resources made a real positive difference. I am encouraged by the attention that you, the Harford County Council, has given to this issue. In the early days of the Harford County Hope for the Homeless Alliance, Curtis Beulah was one of the primary driving forces behind the formation of our alliance and subsequent years. And at times it felt like he was really the member of the council who was doing that, and then others maybe lagged a little bit behind his leadership. Curtis was instrumental in bringing together government leaders, business leaders, and church leaders to work towards solutions as one community, and I miss those days, and I hope we can move back in that direction. I do want to express my appreciation for the number of council members who have reached out to discuss these concerns with me directly. Your engagement matters, and I believe that this renewed attention can only strengthen our collective response. If we can find our way back to some of our previous best practices while also building on the new attention that the County Council is giving to this issue and the ingenuity that the County Executive's Office has demonstrated, I truly believe that we can address homelessness in ways that we never have before. This is a complex and difficult challenge, but the fact is that, but the fact that it is hard does not mean that it's beyond our reach. It is only
Please bring your comments to a close.
It's only through partnership, persistence, and shared commitment that we can even begin to imagine lasting solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Angie Myers, 511 Haverhill Road, Joppatown, Maryland, 21085.
Thank you.
All right. I'm also here to address the homelessness. I work with Adam, the site coordinator at the rotating shelter at Joppatown. You're all welcome to come this week and check it out. Also work with the homeless, Harford County Hope for the Homeless Alliance. And I've spoken at lots of meetings about the homelessness issue. I want to thank you for your interest tonight in all of this. It's very nice to see that. There are some issues as well with the regular shelter that we have, with compliance with ADA, with 504, the Rehabilitation Act. We have multiple people in our ERS right now who are banned for a year from Continuum of Care Services from the Welcome One shelter. They have no place to go when they're banned. I understand there are behavior issues. I'm here with solutions. All of our community engagement representatives in the ERS, we're the security people. I'm a security person, imagine that. But we have mandate training that fire and police go through. We have conflict resolution and management. We do CPR first aid and mental health first aid. A lot of our homelessness, the chronically homeless, they have mental health issues. They have substance abuse disorder, alcoholism. We can't care for them effectively while we're considering all of these solutions without recognizing those things and caring for those individuals and where they are and what they need in support. Again, being banned, some of them don't want to come into the warming centers for that reason as well. I was at the warming center. I tried to volunteer. I was welcome. I wasn't welcome to spend the night. Again, I logged 1,000 hours in 3 months last year at the rotating shelter. I was there every single night for 3 months. I love our people. I do. I'm trying not to get emotional because I'm very happy that everybody is so concerned about them now. But the second night we came, we brought food. We were told they couldn't have hot food. No one knew why. There was a lack of communication. Seemed a lot of our people didn't know that the warming center had opened up. So I don't know how to fix those communication issues. I have ideas. I also sent a proposal to the county for a homeless shelter that is building subsidy, where that takes a lot off of the taxpayers, it takes a lot off the county, where the building could run itself. It would be for families, for individuals. We get a lot of volunteers to come in through the churches that are willing to do the work. So if anybody's interested in that, I'm happy to go over that. And then also just the overall communication. Again, we do have a homeless population that's here in Harford County. As you see, it's 208 people, and we really do want to address that. So there are people, like Adam said, we are here to help with that. And we have the Harford County Hope for the Homeless Alliance. They're willing to come in and step in, and if you guys want to come to a meeting or see what we do, there are a lot of people that are willing to help, so please don't feel like there aren't people out there that are willing to do something.
Thank you, ma'am.
And our last speaker is John Malamo.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Sir, good evening to you and your colleagues, and best wishes for a happy and prosperous new year. John P. Malamo, 2402 Eagleview Drive, Bel Air, Maryland, 21015. I do appreciate your actions related to assisting Harford County residents and employees, extending a sewer line outside the development envelope, letters supporting opponents to power lines and landfills, labor law legislation. I would appreciate it if you would now assist me resolve a long-standing issue at the Harford County Airport. The airport is operating as a permitted use by special exception as recommended by the Board of Appeals hearing examiner, ratified and adopted by the Board of Appeals, affirmed twice by the Circuit Court of Harford County and by the Maryland Aviation Administration and Maryland Department of Transportation. None of those agencies or courts offered any relief from the code or conditions of zoning case 5814. That status is undisputed. Harford County Airport is not in compliance with the zoning laws of Harford County or the conditions of zoning case 5814. None of you has disputed that, and neither has anyone else. If there is anyone who can dispute that, let them come forward with facts. Non-compliance with the law would thereby make the operation unlawful. Council President, when last we spoke on the airport, you told me you supported the airport because it brought jobs. Sir, just for clarity, you support an unlawful operation because it brings job, and your colleagues are silent on the matter? Does that mean they are in agreement? Can anybody explain that? Anybody? Now, Councilwoman Imhoff, it should be clear that when the question is uncomfortable and the answer is inconvenient, elected and appointed officials do not answer. That's the way Harford County works. Councilman Bennett, in your words, the situation at the airport is visible to the public. I wonder, sir, what other unlawful activities does the council support? The penalty for noncompliance is found at Code 267, Part 1, Article 2, 2679L. Any person, firm, or corporation that does not comply with the requirements or conditions imposed by the Board of Appeals shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction thereof shall be fined not more than $500 for each offense. Each day of a continuing violation shall be considered a separate misdemeanor. That's not a minor offense. By recently adopted rules of procedure of the Harford County Council, members of the council will not be expected to immediately respond to any subject brought to their attention other than to inform the individual that someone will respond to their concern accordingly. Who should I expect to call from and when? The law is a promise of fairness, order, rights, and justice that you make to every resident of Harford County when the laws you establish. When you do not follow the laws you establish or the decisions you make and then normalize unlawful activities, you break your promise. Is a promise made really a promise kept? Or just a catchphrase for a campaign bumper sticker and pandering for votes? I wonder now, what other mischief will you inflict on Harford County? Thank you. Good night.
Any other speakers?
There's no one else, Mr. President.
All right, we'll move on to 16 business from council members. Ms. Emma, or, yeah,
I'm like you told me.
Ms.
I was
Robbins.
first. Good evening, and Happy New Year to everyone. Since our last meeting, I've attended several proclamations and grand openings. For the first one was Moser's Motors on December 12th with a couple of colleagues here. I've attended on Saturday, December 13th, the Joppatown Rec Council's annual Winterfest, which had a nice bunch of vendors. They had the chocolate-covered Oreos, which people are learning that are my favorite. They had crafts, and they had Santa. And then later that night, we had our first Edgewood Christmas tree lighting that we haven't had in 10 years. It was well attended. We had the public library there helping children write letters to Santa. We had music. We had toys. We had cookies and hot chocolate. So we look forward to having this again. This is going to be an annual event every year from henceforth is the plan. Tuesday, December 16th, I attended Eggs and Issues, and that was a good conversation getting prepared for the legislation going into session. A big conversation was small businesses and how that looks for affording to pay for medical insurance for the employees, along with some other things that might be coming down the pike that may affect small businesses for affording being a small business. So we're looking at that. Grand opening of Tiffany & Company Bakery. That was a great grand opening, great treats for everyone to try. I have also met with a person who owns a daycare, and that provider is trying to get that to be a 24-hour. She's already almost done. But the purpose is to help those who are that shift work. For the warehouses, she's going to put it right near where the warehouses are. So I'm very excited to see this come to fruition because I think it'll be helpful for the families that need those services for that 24-hour experience. Dave's Cove, we had a meeting because tomorrow it will be going to the Board of Public Works. After hearing from approximately 200 of us mobilized together, they've decided to pull the lease renewal and the discharge permit. And right now, they're only renewing the lease for the next 5 months, is my understanding, till May. But to figure out exactly what we're gonna do with it, what they're gonna do with it, but to ensure that they're gonna make it more environmentally friendly, whatever it is the point. So there will be further conversations as it relates to that. And then last night, we had our Edgewood Joppatown Community Advisory Board meeting. That brought up fruitful discussion with the community. That was always in well attendance. And I think at the end of the day, our CAB meeting, most of the community members would like to have more of those open discussions, because I think it gave us a lot of ideas to work for and with in our own community. Thank you.
Ms. Imhoff.
I hope everyone had a healthy, safe, and happy holiday season and New Year. While the holidays are always a welcome time to pause and reflect, I'm glad to be back at work here at the council. As we begin a new year, I look forward to continuing to work on behalf of our community and addressing the issues that matter most to our community members. I would also like to officially welcome Falston Market International to District B. I had the pleasure with Councilman Tony G. I would normally say your name, but I'm not going to. I had the pleasure of attending the market's grand opening on December 20th. It is a family-owned and operated business located in Bel Air Road in Falston, offering a wide variety of fully stocked items. We wish them much success as they become a part of our community. This family was absolutely remarkable and so hospitable. And if you just go just to meet them, I encourage you to do so. On January 8th, we have the Abingdon-Emerton CAB meeting at 6:30 at the Abingdon Fire Hall. On January 28th, we have the Falston CAB meeting at 6:30 at the Veronica Chenoweth Activity Center. And as a statement of safety, if you have a live tree, take it down, it's dead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jan Giordano.
Thanks, Council President.
Fire safety thing? That's my fire safety, sorry. Go ahead.
Attended the grand opening of Tiffany and Company Bakery, and she actually provided the Christmas tree cookies for the lighting of the Christmas tree in Edgewood, so they were fantastic. If you haven't been there, stop by and see. So it was really good. Grand opening, Kid Strong in Bel Air, and then also Mosser Motors. That was the second grand opening I went there because the first time they weren't ready. So we did a second one, turned out much better. They had chamber there and everything, so good luck to them. The second annual Harford's Harvest Winter Market is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on January 10th and the 24th in Bel Air. Come out and support local vendors. Restaurant week is January 16th to the 25th. Come enjoy your favorite local spot or try something new. And the one of the new laws that might go into effect next year, starting in 2017, that has to be funded, is for the Maryland Family Leave Act. They are going to charge payroll 0.9%, and if you have 15 employees or more, you're going to have to pay for the entire thing. If you have less than 15, you pay half. The employers pay half, but pretty much, the employee pays half and the employer pays the other half. I don't know if that's ever going to fly. The employer might have to pay for the whole thing, but there's some other options available outside of that. So thank you, Council President. Have a Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Jan Giordano. Mr. Riley.
Yes, my prayers go out to the Castley family. If you don't know, he lost his mom this past couple of days. Also, Happy New Year to everybody. And if you haven't noticed tonight, our president has been on excellent behavior. And the reason why that is because his lovely wife is here tonight. And I want to thank her for being here because that's the only way we can keep him in line, Jeannie. Thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness. Ms. Sottles.
Thank you. I'd like to wish everyone a happy and healthy new year. I'm excited to be back, and I look forward to the great work we're going to do on this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett.
Good evening. It's good to be with everyone this evening. I want to reiterate that the Abingdon CAB meeting is coming up on January 8th at 6:30 p.m. at the Abingdon Fire Station. I always really enjoy those meetings and those conversations, so it's important. Even if you live in Belcamp, Riverside, Perryman, Box Hill, come and be a part of the meeting. I also just want to share that in the time between our last meeting and now, Councilwoman Robert and I have been having a lot of conversations about what can we do within our code to help protect tenants, to make sure that they have good living conditions. One of the big things that I know I consistently work on behind the scenes as a council member is helping people when they're living in really unsafe conditions. You know, I've helped a tenant who had rats living in their ceiling tiles, or who had broken stairs to get up to their apartment. And it's very reactive right now of somebody reaches out and we go, well, let's go figure this out and get it inspected. But the question, I had a really great conversation with Dilp the other day, is how do we shift to being proactive? So I appreciate these weeks in between meetings where we're able to have time to research, to investigate, to understand better, because I find that that's where we get our best outcomes.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. 17, business from the president. I spoke with Mr. Overbay earlier this evening. The administration also received an invitation from Cecil County government to participate in a work session for Conowingo Dam and Constellation Energy. Ms. Beery attended for me last week and brought back some of the information. We will be putting this on the agenda next week to identify a council member that will represent Harford County Council alongside Harford County government. And also I want to thank Ms. Robert and Ms. Imhoff for their meeting with Ms. Temechko in reference to homeless last week. We appreciate that very much. Jeannie and I both wish to express our deepest condolences for the Darty and Collins family and friends, the Sullivan and Robine family and friends, the Granger, Menser, and Vincenti families and friends, and condolences to County Executive Castley, the family, the Castley family and the Webster family and their family and friends. His mom was a special lady, no doubt. So, and then also, like many of you, I'm deeply disturbed by the information released earlier today on Fox 45. You've often heard me say that our children are our greatest resource. They represent our future. And as a result of these allegations and reports, I've spoken with council attorney and county auditor and have instructed Ms. Brooks to launch an immediate investigation along with the Maryland State Department of Education into the expenses and attendance at the educational conference held in New Orleans in April of 2024. It is my hope that this investigation will bring the full truth to light. If these allegations prove to be true, I fully support the resignation or removal of any leadership or anyone else who may have been involved. Our school system is built on a foundation of trust, and our county cannot afford to lose trust in the institution that educates our greatest asset, which is our children. So with that, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.